Hello and welcome to Ramblings of a 42-Year-Old Man. Chris Smith here with you as always. And today we are going to do a video game review. It's been a little while since we've done one of these. I know my Final Fantasy kind of series has kind of calmed down a little bit. Honestly, we've gotten to a game that I really don't like all that much, and so I haven't really had the want to get a review out for it really quickly. But with Final Fantasy 16 coming out pretty soon, I will need to kind of jump on that. I want to at least cover 13 and 15 before we start looking at 16. The demo for that just came out today. I'm very excited to get looking at that. I have not yet, but it's supposed to be pretty much the prologue of the game you'll get to play through, and then a little bit of combat scenario later. So excited for that, and it's good timing because I just finished a game that I've been playing for quite a while now, and so it'll be good time to have a new game to be able to pick up and play. And the new game that I am, or the old game, the game that I just finished that I am going to talk about is Octopath Traveler. And we'll get into the background of it real quick. We'll get into some of the character beats, and then we'll talk about the game overall as we go forward. All right, so Octopath Traveler is a Square Enix Switch game. It is on the Nintendo Switch only. It came out in 2018, and obviously Square Enix, anybody who's listened to any of my Final Fantasy videos will know the Final Fantasy series. That's all Square Enix. Also the Dragon Quest series and the newer Tomb Raider games, stuff like that. Square Enix has a lot of games out there. This one is specifically for the Nintendo Switch. And in it, there's 8 different characters you can choose from to be your main protagonist. You start off with that one, and as you go around the world, you can recruit the other 7 characters into your party, which is a good idea. You'll need the characters. And each one of the characters has 4 chapters specific to their backstory that you play through. And then there is a time where you will finish up all 4 of those character chapters, and there is an overarching kind of way that they all come together at the end, which we'll get to in just a little bit. But that's kind of the story of the game. We'll look at some of the characters real quick. So the one that I chose to be my main one, this is because I had kind of spoiled a little bit that the backstory of this one was pretty good. So I started off with her as Primrose, and she's a dancer. And the dancer class in this game is pretty good with daggers. They also have some magical ability and stuff, so she was a lot of fun to play with. Her backstory is very cool, and we'll talk about some of the backstories as we go forward as well. Other characters are Olberic, who's a warrior class. Obviously, warriors, you got your swords and all stuff like that. Cyrus is a scholar, which is the Octopath Traveler version of a pretty much wizard, a mage. He has a lot of magic skills. Ophelia is your cleric, your healer, light magic, stuff like that. Then you got Hannet, who is a hunter class, very similar to the warrior, except she can also capture creatures that you fight and also summon them to help in battle as well. So that's pretty cool. Therian is your thief character. Very quick, good with the knives. His speed is very high. He's not necessarily the strongest on either magic or physical, but very, very speedy. Alfin is an apothecary, which is kind of like you can mix items together to make different things happen and stuff like that. He's like almost like a healer, but not like a magical healer. He heals with medicines and potions and stuff that he creates. Then you got Tressa, who's a merchant. Somebody who sells items and stuff, and that's kind of her story. So that's your 8 characters. Like I said, you begin with 1, and that's kind of your main character. You're always in your team until you finish out their 4 chapters. Once you finish out their whole story, then you can kind of change everybody around. Not just you aren't locked into having that one character always in your party after you finish their story. That said, Primrose was a really strong character because she's pretty good of a hitter. She's pretty good with the magic. She's also pretty fast. She's a really good solid character. I'm really glad I started off with her because she was one of those characters I really would have wanted to take out of the party anyway. So that was pretty good. So those are the characters. You can mix and match them as you want. Like I said, the one that you pick at the beginning is always in your party. You go around the world and you can recruit the other ones. You can play through their chapter 1 of each of their stories. You have to play the chapter 1 of the character you choose. And then when you go around and you recruit the other 7 people, you can choose if you want to play their chapter 1 or just pick up from that point where you pick them up. It's worth it to do their chapters so that you know their story so far, and their first chapter is kind of how they get kind of their backstory and stuff before they get started on their adventures. And so you can go around, you pick them all up, you end up with 8 characters eventually. Other than the 1 character you start with that stays in your party until you finish their 4 chapters, you can mix and match in the other ones as you go. So I was able to kind of rotate the party around pretty good to keep my levels pretty steady, which is good because there is an in-game part that you'll want to have all your 8 characters up pretty good. And we'll talk about that here in just a second. So as I mentioned, all 8 of these characters have their own stories. They each have 4 different chapters that you can play through. Some of them are a little more serious than others. Some of them are a little more fun. Some of them are a little more, like just traveling around the world and stuff. Then other ones that have like very specific reasons that they're moving. So like Primrose's backstory, her father was murdered and her whole story is revenge. She wants revenge on these people that murdered her father, and that's what her 4 chapters are all about. Ulbricht's story is he was a knight for a kingdom, and his king was killed and his kingdom destroyed. And so again, it's very similar. He's kind of on a revenge quest, not necessarily to kill the people that did this, but to kind of find his place in the world now that he doesn't have a kingdom to serve anymore. On his journey, he will end up coming across the people that betrayed and killed his king, so that is kind of in there as well. Hannet's story is pretty pretty darker in tone. Her master has gone missing, chasing after this legendary creature called Red Eye. We end up finding him at some point. He's been turned to stone, so we spend the rest of her story trying to find a way to take out Red Eye and heal the master, stuff like that. Now, Ophelia's story starts a little more light. You think you're just traveling around the world to different churches to light their eternal flame, as it is. And but it ends up getting pretty dark, because by the end of it, you're pretty much having to fight to keep like some dark dimension from opening up and stuff. It can get pretty dire. You got Alfin's backstory is mostly just traveling around the world as a traveling apothecary, trying to help wherever he's needed. Same thing with Tressa's. She's the traveling merchant, traveling around doing stuff. Then you've got Cyrus's, which is a little lighter. He is in search of a book, and then by the end of his story, this book can have some real dire consequences if he doesn't find it. So it gets kind of like Ophelia's. It starts a little bit lighter and then gets darker as you go. And then Therian's he's a thief who's kind of been trapped into having to go find these items for somebody, and so that's what his trip is, trying to go find these items. And those are all the backstories for each of them. Now, what happens is you finish all 4 of the chapters, and you get, especially once you finish the chapter of the one character that you chose to be your primary antagonist or protagonist. Sorry, you get the credits. Credits start rolling, and it's like it's the end of the game. But you could still have plenty more to do. It puts you right back in there, so you can continue doing side quests. And if you haven't finished any of the other characters' main quests, you can go and do that as well. So technically, you could consider that in game. But there is a true in-game boss to this game. It's funny because it's almost treated like a side quest. But there is an in-game character that brings all of these 8 stories together in some way. All these threads of these 8 different people kind of converge with this evil character that is trying to do something that is going to take over, destroy the world. Those kind of stories, the way they go. And you end up having to go into a kind of final dungeon and take out the final boss monster. That's all normal. What's kind of not normal is it's pretty much treated like a post-game side quest. It's kind of interesting the way that they do that. But it is your true final boss of the game. And as such, you have to kind of be prepared. All 8 of your characters will at some point fight this boss. There's 2 parts of it. 4 of your characters will fight the first part. 4 of your other characters will fight the second part. I'll admit right now, I have not taken that battle yet. I've been spending the last couple of days getting all prepped for that battle, and I'll be probably fighting that tonight or tomorrow. But with plenty of time to get into Final Fantasy 16 as soon as it comes out. That being said, when I get in just a quick review of the game and my thoughts on it. All right, so Octopath Traveler is a lot of fun. I enjoyed it quite a bit. The characters are good. The backstory for each of them is pretty good. It's a kind of side-scrolling, almost old-school feeling, Super Nintendo era kind of RPG, with obviously much better graphics than you would have had on Super Nintendo back in the day. But I like those kind of a little bit older school. You're getting in turn-based battles. The battle system is pretty cool. You can there's a certain amount of shields that if you hit enemies with their weaknesses a certain amount of times, they will break and they'll go unconscious, and you can hit them for harder amounts and stuff. That's a pretty cool system. Each of these characters have their own little special skills. Now it's kind of cool. You can unlock the ability to unlock a secondary skill for each of these guys as well. So each of those, the dancer, the warrior, the hunter, and so forth, all 8 of them have little shrines. You can unlock the skill that you can then equip onto any of the characters as a secondary skill. So like I could have Primrose be my dancer and my scholar. So I have she has the dancer skills and the scholar skills, so she's got a lot of magic. Or I can make Primrose into the dancer and warrior and make her into more of a fighter. You know, you can mix and match them, choose all you want. Then there's also 4 classes you can unlock. They're kind of like your super divine classes. Sorcerer is like a heavy magic user. Star Seer is kind of a big support character. Rune Lord is kind of a supporting character on the physical damage side, and then you got your War Master, which is obviously your big tank hitter guy. So a lot of cool mixing and matching you can do. I'm very interested to see how this final boss that I'm going to go fight soon goes. I've been looking at a lot of kind of strategies on how to fight them and using different classes on the characters. Some of them are different than what I've been spending most of the game doing, so it's kind of exciting because I can try something different. So it's a lot of fun. The only thing I would say about the game that might be a little on the negative side is it can be a little bit repetitive. Not the stories themselves, but you got your 4 chapters. You show up at a town where one of your characters has one of their chapters at. You go, you talk a little bit, you go through a little dungeon, you get to the end, you fight a boss. Then you get to the next place where there's a chapter and you do the same thing. You talk a little bit, you go through a dungeon, you get to a boss, you fight the boss. And it's over and over again each time. So there's a bit of a repetitiveness to the gameplay mechanic. Now the stories themselves are each pretty different in their own ways, but the gameplay part of it is all get to town, talk, go through a dungeon, fight the boss. Get to town, talk, go through a dungeon, fight the boss. And you do that over and over again through 16, actually what's 8 times 4? 32 chapters. But it is the gameplay mechanics of it itself, the fighting mechanics, the battle mechanics, the job class system that you can mix and match and play with, kept it fun. I mean, I've played it now for almost 90 hours. By the time I do this final battle, I will probably hit 90. When I do my quarter review for quarter 2 and I talk about games, it's going to be light because this is pretty much the only game I've played this quarter. That's how much it's taken. But it's been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed it quite a bit, and excited to be getting to the ending of it. I'm ready to move on to something else. I'm very excited for Final Fantasy 16. Now, there is a sequel. There's Octopath Traveler 2 that I don't have yet. I probably will pick up at some point and play. It'll be a little bit from now. I want to kind of take a little break because it was, 90 hours of a game. You get a little like, okay, I've had enough of that for right now. But eventually I want to pick that one up as well and play through it. But yeah. That's it for Octopath Traveler. My next thing when it comes to video games will be Final Fantasy 16. We'll try to get a 13 and a 15 review in there if I can. Like I said, I don't particularly like those 2 games that much, so it's kind of like I don't have this drive to try to do a review on those. So maybe if I am able to get a review, I may not be as comprehensive as my past Final Fantasy games have been. Apologies to any 13 and 15 fans. I know there's a lot of people really like 15 because, it's kind of the newest one. There's a whole generation of kids who's probably, that's like their Final Fantasy, where, mine was like the original, and a lot of people's was Final Fantasy 7. Now Final Fantasy 16 is kind of how that is for a lot of people as well. 15. And, I'm happy for them. It's just, it's very, so different than what I'm used to with the Final Fantasy. That's just not quite my thing anymore. I'm aging out of it, I guess. I'm hopeful for 16. It does seem to be kind of coming back into medieval world and summons and things like that. I'm hopeful for it. I hope I'm going to enjoy that one a lot. Excited for it to come out. So thank you for listening to me ramble about Octopath Traveler. Again, if you are into RPGs, especially maybe a little older school style RPG, you will love this. It is a bit of a time sink, so just know that going in that you'll probably be playing for a while if it grabs you, and if it doesn't, you just stop playing. You'll be fine. But yeah, that's on Nintendo Switch, so if you have a Nintendo Switch, you can pick that up and give it a go. All right, thank you for listening. We'll talk again soon, and goodbye.